Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Hanley Effect. I'm Jon Dibben.
I'm Rachel Docekal.
Hey there, Dr. D. How are you?
Dr. D, how are you today?
I am good. We have, I always love the idea of the public servant.
Mhm.
I hope that I think of myself kind of as a servant. I think of what we do, but there are a lot of people who dedicate their lives to public service. And we think of police officers, and we think of firefighters, and we think of all those people. But sometimes we don't think about representatives and senators and politicians.
And the work that they can do and the impact they can make.
It's incredible. And we have today here Senator Tina Polsky, who is a Florida senator who covers parts of Palm Beach and Broward County, and is truly a public servant and has done work that has saved lives. She's advocated for people who struggle with addiction and mental health conditions. And so we are honored to have her, and just want to say thank you for being here, Senator Polsky.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys do amazing work, and I'm so happy to chat with you today.
Well, we love to get to know the person. And so I'd love to, we always ask, would you tell us a little bit about what you do in your life and your work, but also what's that journey that got you to where you are and what you're doing today?
So we have a half an hour. I can tell you my story. And, I'm a native New Yorker. I moved to Florida about 20 years ago with my very young children and my husband, Jeff, and had not been involved in politics. But when I moved to Florida, I was kind of excited about the fact that I thought my vote would count now, because this was back when Florida was a swing state and it was very purple. And I was kind of motivated about that. And I did do some volunteer work on the Obama campaign, not very much. That was kind of the extent of my involvement in politics. But I am a lawyer by background, and I practice as a mediator here in the state of Florida, and, was kind of happily, merrily doing all of that. And I got to be honest, the 2016 election really threw me for a loop. Mm-hmm. And I was very vocal on Facebook and kind of out there. And I had a charity that I worked with, and I ran it. And so I did some public speaking whenever we had events. And there were some people there who were involved in politics. And I kind of made an offhand comment. This was in 2017. This was the wife of a congressman. And I said, it's amazing what he does. And, I'm so frustrated and blah, blah. And unbeknownst to me, she and the congressman's staff director said, "Oh, why don't we have lunch?" And I had no idea what they had up their sleeve, but they said, "You seem like a great candidate to run for an open house seat, a state house seat." And, I didn't even know such a thing existed. And I consider myself a pretty educated person, but I just had no awareness of local politics, even though I voted, and I voted all the way down the ballot. I just didn't really know too much about it. And it sparked an interest in me. As I said, I'm a mediator, but that's kind of a part-time position. And this legislative position is part-time. So I thought, well, I guess I could do it all. And my kids were getting older. And I kind of sometimes talk to people about being, around age 50 and reinventing myself. And, I think that was something that I was going through. And I just felt like, you know what? It's 2 years. If I hate it, I won't do it anymore, but let's go for it. So I decided to run for an open state house seat in the West Boca area, and won that seat. And then the Senate seat opened up. So I ran for that, which was more expansive. It's about 3 times the size of the House seat. And that brought me into Broward County as well. And so I was in that seat. We had some redistricting, but nonetheless, I've done, I've completed 7 sessions, 7 years in the state legislature. I have 1 more year on this term, and then I can run again November 26th for my final 4-year term in the state Senate. So sometimes, people always ask, how'd you get into politics? And sometimes it's that one other person who mentions it to you and it interests you and you say, let's go for it. And I met, amazing people and mentors along the way who said, we think you should do it. And so here I am 8 years later. It's hard to believe.
So, I just want to talk about fentanyl. And, you have, it's funny, as you say, I've only been through 7 sessions. My perception is that you've been there so much longer. Your impact has been great. How is it that you really became the leader in our state in helping save lives from this very, very deadly drug?
Sometimes the way bills come to you is a little bit haphazard, and a constituent might mention something, or in the case of the fentanyl test strip bill, which passed in 2023, they tried it the year before as part of a larger bill, and it failed. And so I was with Rep. Hunchovsky on this, and she had it in the House and I had it in the Senate. And she's like, well, why don't we just try it on its own and maybe it will go through. And so, sometimes the idea is just there. Sometimes it comes to you. This past session, Fentanyl Awareness Day, which is August 21st this year and forever going forward in the state of Florida and nationally, was brought to me by a student in the Broward School District. And the school board member brought the idea to us. And I was like, that's, of course, why not? It's so simple. And, when we evaluate bills, the fentanyl test strip bill, and I'm happy to get into this if you're interested in the sausage making process, was definitely harder because, we're basically making a piece of drug paraphernalia available for purchase. And that struck some people as a little tough to swallow. So that took a little more work. When I got the idea, was given the idea of fentanyl awareness, they're like, well, that's an absolute no brainer. Like, who's going to oppose that? And especially because in the time I've been in the legislature, there have been a lot of bills and discussion on, how dangerous fentanyl is and other drugs and kind of, a little tougher on crime and tougher on drug offenses. And so I thought, there certainly would be the appetite for that. And and when you're crafting a bill, you want to make it so that it'll pass, right? So things you have to do. So for Fentanyl Awareness Day, for example, you want to make it not like you're slamming it down people's throat. You don't want a school district to say, you have to spend 8 hours a semester talking about fentanyl, because they just can't handle that. You can't, really mandate that, or we're going to call it an unfunded mandate, or something that they have to do with a very limited time that they're given. So this bill, as important as it is in terms of awareness, and I think that a lot of folks will follow it and will use it as a springboard to talk about fentanyl, but it's not a requirement. It's a suggestion. And that makes a lot of difference as far as getting a bill passed. And so you have to, you might want to come out of the gate a little bit stronger, but you want to pass something. So the nice thing about this bill was that it was passed, first year that we brought it forward this past year, and signed very quickly by the governor, which I was, so happy about. And so, my goal for that is going to be to get, the cities that I represent and the school districts and social media to just, put it out there and give people an opportunity to kind of talk about it. And so in the scale of things, that one was an easy one. The fentanyl test strips that I did 2 years ago, that was much harder because it was characterized as drug paraphernalia. And I had to really work with some people, in leadership to kind of calm them down about how it will be used. And they were afraid it could be used for nefarious purposes by like drug dealers and things. And I had to change the language a little bit, but the end result is fine, because fentanyl test strips, you guys can give them out. They sell them in the drugstores. They give them out on college campuses. They're there and they're available. And so if you have to change the language a little bit to make it palatable for everyone, then you do that. So that's that. And then the third bill that I happen to do this past year as well, that was incredible. That came to me from a family, like so many of the important, kind of heartbreaking legislation that we do does. And, a poor young man had died after a fentanyl overdose, and he was in the hospital and had either not been tested for fentanyl, or they didn't realize the fentanyl was still in his system and they sent him home and then he died. And so from my understanding, in the hospital, they can give the Narcan, but they may need to give it more than once in order for the person to survive. And so this final bill that I did mandates that if you're doing a drug overdose panel, you have to include the fentanyl as part of that. Now, some of the hospitals already did it, and this happened in the Orlando area, and the hospitals in that area already did it, but they wanted to make sure that it was statewide. And now that, was another interesting piece of legislation in the sense that it was going fine. And then at the day before the vote, I got some pushback that for certain hospitals, it's going to cost too much money and they can't do it. And can we fix something? Can we do it next year? I'm like, no, like we're on the edge. Like it's already passed in the House and now it's in the Senate. And this happens all the time. Like you can't believe the last minute maneuvering that happens. And it passed kind of earlier in the session. And there was like one word they wanted to change to help out some of these hospitals. So what we kind of made an agreement was we're going to pass the bill and then you will come back next year with a glitch fix, like literally one word. But then they ended up finding another bill a little bit like 2 weeks later in session that could fix, it was a health department bill, and they could fix the one word to give hospitals who can't afford this, like, an opportunity to, if they can't do it, they can't do it. But this way the bill could stay alive. And that prevented a veto. And it prevented, pushback. So this is kind of as I said, the sausage making that goes on with this legislation. It seems it's a lot harder than it looks to get these things done. But now, there's other bills that have passed, relating to officers who are around a fentanyl exposure and things of that nature. But the ones that I did, the ones I just talked about, it just happened to be that they came to me. Sometimes the most recent one I just talked about with the overdose panel, that was a state rep, Rita Harris in the Orlando area, and her local hospital had brought it to her. And then she reached out to me to be the Senate sponsor. So, you kind of get lucky that you get good bills brought to you, or, someone in the community tells you about it and you just kind of go forward and figure out the best path forward to get it passed.
I actually love that you shared the sausage making process.
Me too.
It is, we don't get to see that. We don't, we see sound bites here and there. And I really love hearing the details of how the work, that political work really makes a difference in people's lives, in everyday lives. And if anybody's listening and you're not familiar with fentanyl is an extraordinarily powerful drug that in very, very, very tiny amounts is killing people. People are, and it's far more powerful than heroin and other opiates that are out there. And so, the things that you're talking about, making sure that hospitals test for that, because if they find it, then they can treat it. But if they don't find it, they won't treat it. I recently, within the past 2 weeks, was with a family who lost, somebody to a fentanyl overdose that was, something they'd bought on the streets, was laced with fentanyl and they didn't know and they passed. So when you're talking about those fentanyl strips, and I get it, people that, they have strong feelings about it, but he could have tested that and known, hey, this is going to be deadly to me. And someone's dad would still be here. And so, the things that you're talking about, it's the making of the sausage, but at the end of the day, man, it really does save lives, and good legislation matters.
Saves lives. It does matter. Senator, how did you get interested in fentanyl to begin with versus other types of opiates?
Yeah, there's got to be a lot of things that people are coming to you with.
Yeah, well, a couple things. You all at the Hanley Foundation, I've known for several years and have participated in some of your events in my area. And I know some folks who work there, and
you were in one of our cook-offs. I think
I was too,
yeah.
I think.
Yes. Yep.
And, I got to meet the Macris family and, what they've gone through. And, how could you not be moved by these stories? So I give you all a lot of credit for my own awareness. My friend Dave Arenberg has been so involved in this work from a legal perspective, and has made many of us in Palm Beach County very aware of what's going on. But the final kind of interest, remember I mentioned that there was a congressman, Congressman Ted Deutsch, who was my congressman for quite a while. It was his wife and his staff director who are the ones who got me into politics. They lost their nephew in college to fentanyl. I don't know exactly what he took, but my understanding, like so many, especially young college people, is it was something, like a prescription, and, not from a pharmacy, but from a friend. And, took that because, so many of the kids, everyone deserves to live and not be laced with fentanyl, but so many of these young people, they're not drug addicts. They're not taking heroin off the street. And it comes from, oh, here's an Adderall or a Xanax to help you in college, and they die. And so they started a foundation called
just like something coming from the pharmacy. I mean, they're literally pressed, and
they have the
identifiers, everything.
Yep.
You'd never know
on the pill. You would never know.
So the Deutsch family, their nephew, their parents started the Birdie Light Foundation, and I've been to some events with them and just kind of learned about it. And when I worked on my first piece of legislation, the fentanyl test strips, was speaking to them about it, and so they certainly inspired me to see what I can do. I have children that age. It's just something so close to home. And so much of what we do in Tallahassee is, a lot of fighting and some important stuff, some not so important stuff, a lot of stuff I don't like. But when we can pass legislation that can make a difference in people's lives, and a lot of the ones that are kind of health related, I've done some other health related legislation, you just really feel like, wow, like this is how the law can be changed to help people and do the right thing and what you're there for. So it's very gratifying. And so when I had the opportunity and, the ability to get it passed, I'm certainly going to try.
Wonderful. Tell us about Fentanyl Awareness Day.
So August 21st is our brand new Fentanyl Awareness Day. As I mentioned before, it's, sort of a voluntary effort, but I really hope that the schools especially will, put out information. I'm personally going to reach out to my local area, and ask that they help me promote, like imagine if I have 7 cities, if each of the cities send out an email, with some information, with a video, with some graphics, with some important information, phone numbers, et cetera, and resources, then think about how many people it would reach. Mm-hmm. And how a parent might get the email and say to their 18-year-old kid, hey, are you aware of this? Did you know this? And just, what if one person found out about it and made a different decision on a day? And so that's really the idea of it. As I said, it came to me from a student in
I love that.
Yeah, in high school. And I know we get great ideas from kids. In fact, for many years, I did like a contest to get ideas from them about legislation. And but it's just amazing. The idea came and it passed in the same year, which is very unusual. So, it's very simple, but we have awareness for a lot of different things. And this is just a tragedy that has befallen our society. And it's so preventable. So if we can just get more information out there, it's only going to help. And, I'll try to get the information out to the Florida colleges as well. And, just see if they can blast it out. Everyone has the ability for social media and for email. And so, what audience we're trying to target. So we'll try to get to those young people and make sure that they're aware and that they just think twice before they ever take anything, and the resources that are out there to help them.
I love that.
That's wonderful. It's really wonderful.
So can I switch kind of a little bit? So I'm thinking about what you've accomplished. It's been 7 years. You've got another 5. I've decided. The next 4, right?
I think you're going to ask the same question I was.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you hope that you would like to see happen? If you could say, I can guarantee these are the things that are going to happen. Like, what are some things that you hope you'll be able to do? What are kind of the next things on the horizon over the next 5 years for you legislatively?
Well, as far as like what we've been talking about, I would look to folks like you who are in the industry and, the real experts to say, what would be next in this area. Everything is not a legislative fix. Like when ideas come to me, which as I mentioned, they come in all different formats, everything is not legislation. Some things are just an agency can do this without being required to by the state legislature. So it has to be like a glitch in the law or something that's missing or something that we can change that would matter. So that's kind of the first step. So if there is something, from a legislative perspective that you think could be changed, I always love to hear that. So whoever's listening, any ideas, we have not set our agenda. We don't start session until January of 26. So, bring it on. Let us know. Please, we're always looking for great ideas. Sometimes, there are some bills that I have filed for 7 years and they may never see the light of day. But I will continue to file them. When I started down this journey, one of the reasons that I wanted to run it back in 2017 or 18, I felt very strongly about gun safety. And I was responding to kind of Sandy Hook and all that had happened before. And I was frustrated the federal government hadn't done anything. So okay, let me try state. I mean, that was so naive of me, but everyone goes in naively. Otherwise you'd never try this. So I'm campaigning, I'm working this, I'm running for a state house in 2018. I'm doing something called Leadership Boca, where you go around to I live in Boca Raton, where you go around to businesses and nonprofits and government agencies and utilities and things, and you learn a lot about how the government runs. The reason I brought that up is because I was on a Leadership Boca trip. We go on buses. It was like once every couple of weeks over the course of several months. And I was with some folks. We had just toured a business and the Parkland news comes in. So it's February 14th, 2018. And I'm with someone who's very close, whose daughter was like a sister to Jamie Guttenberg, and Fred Guttenberg is the father, and Jen Guttenberg, she was one of the 17 victims. And, we're getting the news and he's saying, we can't find Jamie, what's going on. And it's so heartbreaking. I didn't know any of the Parkland parents at that time. And, so I was already that was a big issue for me going into running. And then this happened in our state. And, I didn't get into office until it was November 2018 that I was elected. So the Florida legislature actually did some good stuff around Parkland and passed some important bills. An important bill that contained some good provisions about gun safety. But I wasn't there at the time. But of course there's more to do. So the minute I got in, I start, filing legislation around safe storage of guns. That was kind of my first angle that I went with, which I have not ever let go of since. Just really tried to work that. And none of these bills ever get hearings. Just they won't even contemplate them. Since I've been in the legislature, I have seen how they have tried, remember I said they passed very good legislation in 2018. They've tried to chip away at that and take away provisions, even though it's working. Some of those provisions, like, for example, red flag laws. There have been thousands of people whose guns have been taken away. And, this kind of relates to drug use. So this is, for the work that you guys do, this is very important. And without those red flag laws, then someone's a drug user, someone's a violent person, you might not be able to take away those guns. So it has worked in the state, and yet they're trying to take things away. And in the 7 years that I've been there, it's become more permissive to carry guns and concealed weapons. And here we are in a state that had two of the hugest mass shootings, the Pulse nightclub and Parkland. And in 2020, when I became a senator, I began to represent Parkland, because I started off just in Palm Beach County. And now, since then, I've had Parkland and the surrounding areas. It's not just Parkland who's affected. So it is incredibly near and dear to my heart. Now I know so many of the Parkland families, and I continue to push legislation every year on this topic. And again, it doesn't get heard. As a senator, you have unlimited bill slots, so I can file as many as I want. And, they do get a lot of press attention. I get to talk about it. I think it's important to keep it in people's minds. People say to me, well, why do you do it? If it's not going to go anywhere, because I want to show the people that I represent that I'm fighting for them. And it does keep it in the discussion, and it's very important. So, the very long answer to your question, I will continue to push for a sensible gun legislation. I mean, I don't know anyone who would say guns shouldn't be locked up when they're not in use, right? Like, right. I don't know any gun owner who would say they don't disagree with that. And so I don't know why we won't change the laws. That just as an example. On another note, I did another important health bill that I did 2 iterations of that did pass. And I'd like to kind of knock it out of the park next year and add to it. And remember, I kind of said you can't go for broke the first year. You kind of take something piecemeal because it's too much all at once. It's too much of an expense, or you just won't be able to get it passed. So there's a virus called cytomegalovirus, or CMV, which is like a common cold for adults. But if a pregnant woman has it like in her 3rd trimester, it can get passed to the baby, and it's very dangerous for a newborn. And it's like the leading cause of deafness and potential other developmental disabilities. So there are some antiviral treatments that are available. They're not necessarily 100%, but when a baby is born, they get certain tests in the hospital every year. When they're born. And we added the CMV test to that. But the piecemeal part is not every baby's being tested. So it started off with babies under a certain category, like in the most vulnerable babies. And then we expanded that pool of vulnerable babies to a larger group. And so next year, I just want it across the board, every baby gets tested. Because if you know that the baby tests positive for CMV, the newborn, they can get some of this antiviral. And even if that doesn't work, because it's not guaranteed, you could start certain therapies or look for certain things, because you can make a difference in that child's life for, therapies and dealing with if there is deafness, or, make it not kind of minimize the damage and, that this virus causes. So, that's an example of something that I'd like to continue to do going forward. And then I don't know what other great ideas are going to come, but that's the basis.
What I love is this triad of efforts to improve public health and safety that make people, give people the opportunity to grow up and to be healthy and to be alive. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful for that. And I, again, am really grateful for the showing us how the sausage is made, because it really drives home to me the importance and helps me really understand a little bit better what is actually happening in Tallahassee, and hopefully that is what's happening in our country in general. We sometimes can get, feeling defeated, those of us that don't have that seat. And man, that picture that you just gave of the process, it was so helpful to me.
Yeah, you guys should come up to Tallahassee and advocate for whether it's funding or awareness or, and I think, one thing that's kind of interesting, which I've learned is, every issue has an advocacy group. You guys are probably part of a larger group of, providers, and then they often are the ones who will lead the charge coming to Tallahassee and requesting whatever it is. Most often it's funding, to be honest, but sometimes it is legislation. And let's say we come up with a great idea over the next few months, and you all or other people can come up and go to different representative senators' offices and say, hey, we love this SB 120, whatever the number is, and here's a one pager on why it's so important, and we hope you'll vote for it. And like, if I can't get a hearing, you help me speak to the committee chair. Come on, you got to hear this important bill. And that's how the process is done.
I say we go.
Last time I went, the senator and I sat on the plane together on the way back. That was so fun.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
All right, I got to be the bad guy.
Okay.
I am the bad guy. It is our time to start wrapping up. Senator Polsky, this has been such a pleasure. I want to thank you. We love to give you the last word. There's a pretty broad audience, some professionals and non-professionals, and people impacted by addiction and people not. And so just to this broad general audience, what is the last word that you would have, the one thing you would want our audience to hear from you today?
Thank you for that opportunity. There are probably so many people who listen who don't think about politics ever, or don't think about who their elected officials are. I think by the discussion of what we had today, you can see that it matters who you vote for, or it matters that you vote. It matters that you care and that you're aware. I mean, so many people probably have no idea who live in Florida that Tallahassee even exists or what we do. But the funding for everything, for mental health, for drug awareness, addiction treatment, through, whether it be coming through the federal program, Medicare, Medicaid, or state dollars, it flows through Tallahassee. And so you should know everyone has a state rep and a state senator, everyone. Very easy to look up. Reach out to them if something's concerning you. Bring them a great idea for legislation. There are so many things we do that are nonpartisan. I mean, we've got some bad stuff that goes on, but 95% of the bills are unanimous. We get along fairly well. And most of these bills I talked about with you today were bipartisan. Like I'm a Democrat in the Senate, but I had a Republican in the House, and that was something that helped pass a bill, to be honest, to have one on each side. So there's so much more that so much matters in politics and who your representatives are. And I would just love everyone to care and make sure everybody's registered to vote. And if you want to vote by mail, which is available to everyone in Florida, and you can get a vote by mail ballot and you don't have to use it. You can still go to the poll and you just don't use the vote by mail. You can't vote twice. It's not an issue, but you have to re-register every 2 years for vote by mail. So if you had one in the last presidential, you do not have a vote by mail ballot available to you unless you re-register for it again. So, thank you to the Republican leadership for making it very hard. So anyway, please register to vote by mail. Just have it come to you. It's so easy. It gives you an opportunity to see who you're going to vote for. And you don't even have to use it. Like I said, you can still go vote in person if that's what matters to you. We have 2 weeks of early voting every year. Florida makes it very easy to vote. I think we have a really good election system. So it's not just kind of the things you hear about on TV and the fighting. There's everyday important information, education, health, safety, that it matters who your local elected officials are. So please get involved. Please care. Please vote.
And thank you for that message, but also for showing us today, helping us see. I think anybody can see that a lot more clearly. So thank you so much, Senator Polsky. Thank you, Dr. D.
Thank you, Dr.
Loved being with you always.
It was so good.
It was. And for everybody who's watching or listening, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you next time on The Hanley Effect.
Thank you for joining us for the Hanley Effect. To learn more about our programs, visit hanleyfoundation.org or call 844-502-4673.